Join the channel today to see the full interview and others.
And so they start, what do you think about homosexuality? And I just told them straight up. I was like, I believe what the Bible says. It's like, if you want to know my position on homosexuality, go read a Bible. It's like,
yeah.
And so that was pretty much it. The GLA told me straight up, we're starting a letter writing campaign to DC to get you fired.
Wow.
And at the time, Bob Schreck was group editor on Batman, which makes him the most powerful editor at DC besides the EIC. And they said they were writing Bob Schreck, and Bob Schreck was an out flamboyant homosexual man. And within very shortly, very shortly, I got a call from my editor saying to chill out on the religious stuff on the DC message boards because you're representing DC Comics. And I'm like, okay, enough said. My editor told me to shut up. I work for you. That's fine. That didn't help because within the span of a few weeks, by the way, at the time this happened, I was on JLA. I was the artist filling in on the flagship title with Brian Hitch. It was me and Brian Hitch doing JLA at the time. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Is it Len? I think it was Len Kaminsky. And I had concocted this 12-issue JLA maxi series that was going to be DC's take on Avengers Forever, right? It was going to be the JLA and Guns of Navarone in space. That was how I pitched it to Dan Raspler. He hooked me up with this writer. We got the story all laid out, approved, greenlit at DC. This was going to be like the maxi series for the JLA for the 2000s.
Right.
And everything vanished. I couldn't get a fill-in issue at DC.
Wow.
I called and talked to Eddie Berganza, and he wouldn't say anything, and I'd shoot him out. I'm like, I thought we were friends, and this is not professional behavior, and blah blah blah. I don't even remember. I just remember I was in the car, just yelling at him. I had an early cell phone. I got a cell phone in 1999.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't have one.
I just remember being so freaking disappointed in this guy who had he'd given me the Superman work. He, obviously Dan Raspler was my editor on JLA. So, but Dan tried to get the brakes hit on this, but the powers that be, and I can only assume it was Bob Schreck, put the foot down and said, no, Mike Miller cannot work here anymore. And the funny thing, the irony of this is that I was friends with Darren Davis, and I would do work with him or for him on some of his Blue Water stuff here and there and whatnot. I had been friends with him since I was still in at my dad's house. So years. I've been friends with him both years. Darren's also a gay dude he's actually got HIV. Not that has anything to do, but I'm just saying how open he is about it because he doesn't hide this stuff. And his boyfriend at the time worked at DC, and he's the one that told me I was absolutely blacklisted at DC because they don't publicize this stuff.
Right.
They try to go around saying there's no such thing as a blacklist.
Right.
But I talked to Brian Gustin, who, just to clarify, I talked to Brian. I guess I know I'm totally railroading this whole thing.
It's okay.
I talked to Brian Augustin because he was my editor at the time, or when he was my editor on Triumph, and I had kind of kept in touch with him through the years. He's passed away. I think he passed away from the jab, but he told me point blank. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, oh, there's a blacklist. The editors love putting people on the blacklist at DC.
Click below to become a member today so you can have access interview and others.